Hey, everybody, welcome to the Etc. Show, our big post-draft extravaganza. We talk everything about the Steelers, NFL draft, and you know us. We're going to talk about some goofy crap later on. I'm Chris, got Joe with me. Paul somewhere. I'm not sure where, but it's Joe.
He may be somewhere over a rainbow.
Over Rainbow.
Mm-hmm. He may be somewhere in time.
I got a little excited about Will Howard. I was afraid maybe he thought I was too overexcited about Will Howard. Nah, we'll see. We'll talk about it in a minute.
Well, we should be excited about Will Howard. We should be excited about all of our draft picks.
Yeah, and we'll get to Will Howard. He's like the sixth pick or fifth pick the Steelers made. So let's start out from top to bottom. We'll start out with the Steelers, and then we'll talk about some of the other stuff going in the draft that affects the Steelers. I don't know, Joe. I hate to say I told the show. I really don't know. I just got so sick and tired of watching the Steelers get run over like a freight train by the Ravens.
Oh, yeah.
They got run over going into the playoffs. It kind of sucked. And not that draft a defensive lineman would solve all the issues in the world, but I thought that might be better than risking on some quarterback that may or may not be good. Well, the Steelers listened, or maybe I listened to what I read about the Steelers, right? I don't know. Steelers drafted Derek Harmon in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, I kept telling you guys they had three guys to choose from. Well, two of them went a little early. It was either Harmon or nobody else, and they ended up picking up Harmon. I don't know much about him. I know he played for Oregon. I know he first started his career at Michigan State. I know the Steelers really liked him.
Mm-hmm.
I know that a lot of the people who were picking between the top three defensive linemen, a lot of them picked Harmon. So, again, Joe, I don't know. I can't tell you if he's good, bad, or upside down, but I do know a lot of people like him. He's a big guy. He can play inside. Last thing I'll say before I turn it over to you, when the Steelers are really good, they had good defensive linemen, nose tackles. Think of Casey Hampton. Think of Javon Hargraves. And, we keep thinking, what's it going to take for the Steelers to get better? Obviously, quarterback is a big important element. Let's don't forget about that. But they need a better defensive line. Yeah, I hope Harmon can be that type of guy. What do you think?
I mean, that's the hope. Like you were talking about, there were multiple linemen defensive linemen that everybody was talking about that we felt like these were game changers. These were generational dudes. These were the dudes to put in the trenches and that can make a big difference for a lot of teams. And yeah, those last couple of games where we were on that slide at the end of the season, it was definitely a big part of it was an inability to stop the run and put pressure on run games in that way. That did a lot to us and not a lot for us. So it was great, inevitable that when they were going to make these kinds of changes. This is just that team. We're that team. We're that team that spends all of their time and energy and money on the things that are important to them, and that is defense. That's just the way that it is. So I'm not surprised by it. I don't know. Maybe I was surprised by it. I just it definitely left so many questions going on. And questions that the entire league had. Everybody's response to how the draft actually played out was very surprising. But in the long run, not that surprising that the Steelers would want to focus on defense, especially when their run stopping has been challenged. So I think he's a big, meaty dude. It's what you want to put up the front in our defensive line. I think he's going to do some great things. He has the chance to work with Cam Hayward. I know that he's looked up to him. He was one of those players that that Derek Harmon always was looking up to. So now's a chance to learn from him and play side by side with him, and that's going to be pretty awesome. Excited for that. We'll just have to see if he's day one ready or not.
And the Steelers still have Keanu Benton, a defensive tackle, who is playing pretty well. Mm-hmm. But you need more than one guy. Larry Ogunjobi, he left as a free agent. And, Ogunjobi played pretty well when he was healthy, but he wasn't healthy that much. I mean, that's what it really came down to. So they got him. They got another guy we'll talk about in a few minutes. And, again, they're not the best defensive line. Let's not get crazy here, but I think they're in better shape than they were before, which is a really good thing.
Yeah, this is a plus.
We'll talk Shedeur Sanders a lot more later.
Yeah, let's leave that and just stick with what it is, who is on our team.
Well, let's mention a little bit with the first round, because there was talk about, do the Steelers pick a quarterback? If it was Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, whoever else. I really think the Steelers, and we'll talk about it when we get to who they did pick a quarterback. I think the Kenny Pickett thing scared him off a little bit. Because I think with Kenny Pickett, he's not a terrible quarterback. They just reach for him. They drafted way too high. And when you draft a guy in the first round, you got to play him right away. I think the Steelers like some of the quarterbacks in the draft. I don't think the Steelers liked them enough to say, here, we're going to draft you in the first round, and hey, we're going to push you out, and you're going to play in the first year. I don't think they liked him enough. I think we'll talk more about Shedeur, because I think that was a little bit of a different case than some of the other guys. But I think that's why the Steelers didn't draft the quarterback to the 6th round. I mean, I know there was a lot of speculation saying they might go in the first round, but was that kind of the impression you got of why they didn't do that?
Yes. I think overall, we go into the draft and there's a lot of teams that have problems they need to solve at the quarterback position. And so everybody immediately, that's the thing everybody's concerned about. And they believe that, picks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 should be all quarterbacks. And if you want one of those guys, you got to get right up to the top of the draft order. You got to make trades and you got to get there. And I don't think anybody played into that this year. I think a lot of teams were scared off of what they were seeing on tape and what they were meeting in terms of looking at them as day one starters. I think was it Cam Ward, right?
Yeah.
I think they're pretty comfortable with him, and they were excited about what they're going to be able to do with him. And nobody else was as sold. And everybody else had multiple holes to fill on their rosters. So nobody went out there and overshot for quarterbacks other than pick number 1. It's so weird how this whole draft became about a dude who was not picked until the 5th round when there was a number 1 quarterback, and the responses that people had about it. I don't want to get into it yet if we're going to talk about it later. But so I don't think the Steelers were so sold on anybody that they went out and just were trying to solve their other problems. And so that's why they started off with defensive line and went there a couple of times in the early rounds. It's just, it was surprising, because knowing they didn't have a 2nd round pick, because they lost that when picking up DK Metcalf, that once they made that selection, they had to sit for 2 whole rounds to get all the way back to their pick. And so it was just really nerve-wracking. And then when they got there, it still wasn't a quarterback. They're like, I don't think so. So, yeah, it's strange. I saw a commentary somewhere talking about the Steelers draft being unusual, because you look at all these guys and almost to a man, you would say at this position they were picked, they were almost like getting steals. Like the fact that Derek Harmon was still available at 21, he probably could have gone earlier. And the fact that he was still there, we got a great deal. And all the way down the line, all of these guys were good deals for where the Steelers got them. The fact that we got our running back, Kaleb Johnson, in the 3rd round, he probably could have been a late 2nd rounder, but we got him at the middle of the 3rd.
Well, let me mention something else about one other thing about Harmon that should be mentioned. Broke my heart. I don't know much about Derek Harmon's story until they drafted him, but I think his mom was a single parent, or maybe his dad died, or I'm not sure what happened to the family, but it was just the mom, and very close to his mom. And from what I heard, his mom was dying, and even in the post-draft press conference, they do a quick phone call once you pick the player. They get him on the phone. The local media's got a chance of just getting some initial questions in. And he's like, "Hey, I gotta go. My mom's on life support," and so the interview ended. And we find out that, he gets to the hospital, he says bye to his mom, and his mom passes. And, anytime, and, we've all been through parents passing or friends of that parents have passed. It's obviously really tough. And, his mom was really close to him, meant a lot to him, his development as a person, as a football player. So heart breaks for the guy. But, I think back to football, and we'll say this about a lot of the other guys. Tom looked at him and said, hey, he looks like a Steeler. He's got that hard-nosed mentality and everything. And, hopefully it translates to the pro game. Like you said, you were starting to talk about Kaleb Johnson in the third round. I'll tell you, Joe, I'm an Ohio State guy. I follow Big Ten football. Kaleb Johnson's from Iowa. I got to say, I didn't know much about him. But the more I've read about him, I kind of like the guy. Kind of a tough runner, and you might say, well, wasn't Najee Harris like that? Well, he's a cut running back, which a lot of people say that kind of fits in the Steelers' mold, what they need. He fits better in that type of running system than Najee Harris maybe. I don't know, Joe. I've heard, this guy could be Arian Foster, which would be nice because Arian Foster had a real nice run with the Texans, but I think he can fit in the Steelers mold. And, he doesn't have to play 50 carries a game right away. They still have Jalen Warren. They still have Gainhouse. I think this could be a nice fit for the Steelers.
Yeah, if he's anything like what they're advertising him as, this is going to work out fantastic. But, there's just too many times where you don't know what you got in a pro player until he starts playing some pro ball. It's one thing to bowl over people when you're playing in college and you're playing a bunch of guys who aren't necessarily the top of the roster, and now all the top of the pile guys are the people you're running against every week. So it kind of remains to be seen. But like you say, we got two solid runners above him right now on the depth chart that give him a chance to learn rather than having to come out day one and completely destroy everybody. So the fact that he's got some breathing room is going to be great. Yeah, I think it's a good, solid pick. And if he is as advertised, it's going to work out great.
If I had to be critical at all, and I think it's going to be fine for the Steelers, Gainhouse was the backup of Barkley. And Saquon Barkley said last year, hey, this guy is going to be a starting running back somewhere. And I still think Jalen Ward could be good. I guess if I any question, and again, they drafted him in the third round. They didn't draft him first. But you kind of think, did they really need a third running back? But, like I said, at least they got a good one. So I'm anxious to see how Kaleb Johnson would do for him.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of surprised me. If they didn't get the kid from Philadelphia, you would think, okay, you need a running back. I'm surprised they didn't reach for him. They picked a good guy, but it was weird they invested a higher draft pick on your third running back, which was kind of strange. But you never know. I mean, if
their hope is that he's going to be better than that, and who doesn't want to have the problem of saying, "Gosh, which one of our starting quarterbacks is going to start?" They're all going to get time. It's going to be fine.
Well, and you never know. We'll talk about the quarterback situation. But, most likelihood the Steelers are going to try to be a running team. So having three running backs isn't a bad problem to have when you're trying to be a running team. At least it appears like they are. Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
What's going on. So, I'm anxious. I'm curious to see how he reacts as a cut runner. Like, how is that different than Najee? But again, that's the Steelers system. And if Najee didn't fit that, and who knows? I think Najee could have a good year for the Chargers, but you need a running back to fit your system a little bit better. And maybe that's where Kaleb Johnson will fit in well. Going on to the next pick, the fourth round. Now, Joe, Ohio State, the stadium is probably about 15 minutes away from my house. Jack Sawyer is your fourth round pick. He's a linebacker from Ohio State. Jack Sawyer grew up in Pickerington. It's a suburb of Columbus, near where I live. So I know of Jack Sawyer well. I know he was very hyped up. I remember, I think I was working at the Columbus Dispatch at the time. I would do stories about how man, he chose Ohio State to go there. So I don't know him personally, but I've written a lot about Jack Sawyer. Kind of surprised they picked him a little bit.
Why is that?
Well, I didn't know where he was going to play in the pros. Now, the Steelers picked him. They said outside linebacker, and that makes sense. Now, I saw some weird message on Twitter saying, well, we didn't know who T.J. Watt was. Maybe Jack Sawyer is going to be next T.J. Watt. Well, you never know. He might be. I think more likelihood he's a good, hard-nosed linebacker. He's a good pass rusher. I think he's a solid run stopper. I don't know if the career path is necessarily T.J. Watt. If you think of Mike Vrabel, I know right now we look at him as a Patriots coach, but Vrabel was a really good linebacker for the Steelers and the Patriots in his career. Vrabel never made an all-pro team. I'm not even sure if he ever made a Pro Bowl, but he was solid. He was good. And I see Jack Sawyer being that. I'm not sure if his potential is sky high, but you hear about the floor. Like, is he going to be a bust? I would be stunned if he's a bust. I think he's going to be a solid guy that's could play right away as a backup. And I think, and if you look at what makes the Steelers better, it's when T.J. Watt has depth behind him. When he has nobody behind him, he has to play more. You don't see him play as well. But when you have better guys behind him, and he can take a little bit of rest here and there, he can play better. And I think Jack Sawyer could be that third or fourth linebacker on the outside. And just think, I mean, assuming we still have T.J. Watt, we got Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, and now Jack Sawyer. And I like this combination of four linebackers better than they had last year. So I wasn't anticipating the Steelers picking Sawyer, but I think it was a good pick.
Yeah, like we said, those every time the Steelers pick somebody, you were like, what? I mean, not that you don't need somebody to do that, but that's what we need right now. But if you just go up and down the roster of the draft picks, none more than Jack Sawyer, it feels like it's an ethos. It's a vibe. It was all vibe that they were drafting on. That dude right there is a dude that I want in the trenches with us. That's what I want. I want that guy. That's what it feels like up and down this list. So... And the fact that when it came up to their point in the draft, I'm like, oh, that guy's still available? Awesome. Let's get him. In their own special, unique, best available player kind of a way, if that makes sense. So if this guy's available, it's something that we want to do. We want his vibe. We'd like him to have him in the locker room. If he gets fired up, everybody else around him is going to get fired up. That we like those guys. Yeah. Also, I just remember I didn't really know that much about him, so I haven't written a bunch of stories about him. He's not a local guy to me. So they're like, wait, they've drafted Jack Sawyer. And I just heard that name, and I'm like, is there any more steel curtain name than Jack Sawyer? Jack Sawyer. Like, that's just, he should be playing on the defense in Pittsburgh. It just feels right.
And if you're not from Ohio State or Columbus, probably the most notable play for a regular football fan that's not tied into Ohio as much. Remember the Ohio State-Texas game, semifinal game. Ohio State's up by 7 late in the game. Texas is driving. Jack Sawyer came in off the side, sacked Quinn Ewers, the quarterback of Texas, and picked up the ball, ran 80 yards for a touchdown. And that helped propel Ohio State to the national title.
Right.
So, yeah, and he was good. He had 9 sacks last year. Like I said, it wasn't an overwhelming stat line, but he's solid. He's good. And like I said, if I had to pick his career path, I think he could be a Vrabel-like linebacker. And again, that may not be all pro, but it's going to be a good player for a good team. Well, we hope it's a good team. So,
and hopefully for a long time.
Yeah, and like I said, it was funny. I knew Jack Sawyer was going to get drafted. It was hard to figure out where he was going to get drafted. Some people thought I could have been as high as second round. So here's the other thing, too. If you can get some of these guys a little bit lower than some people thought you'd get drafted, that's good. Like, you didn't have to spend the first-round draft pick on Jack Sawyer. You know, having him in the fourth round feels good. I think it's a good spot for him. And, you know, reading some of his quotes that he had, I mean, he likes it. He likes playing for Steelers. He likes the defense. And again, he's a hard-hitting defensive guy. Steelers, when things go good, their defense is a hard-hitting defensive team. So it seems like a great fit for him. I will say, Joe, I didn't know anything about their 5th-round draft pick. I saw the name. I'm like, what? Who's this guy? What do you think his first name is pronounced? I didn't catch it.
When I looked it up, it said Waya.
Why?
So like with a W. Waya.
Okay. Yeah.
I've seen other places. I feel like I've seen Y or like Waye, but Waya is what I just looked up before we started here, and that's what it said.
Okay. He's from Iowa. So he was a teammate of Kaleb Simpson. It's interesting. I thought he was a defensive tackle, but this story on Steelers.com says he's actually a defensive end.
Yeah.
Well, Wikipedia says he's a defensive tackle. So maybe let's say he can play both. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
Big dude, 336 pounds, 6'6".
Yeah.
I like that, right?
Yep. Very much so. I remember reading some stuff on draft night. He's just a guy who's able to engage quickly and bounce off to where he needs to be quick. Like that was one of the main things that they were saying. So he gets his hands up and gets into something and can get off of that first blocker and get to where he needs fairly quickly. That was something they were hyping up with him. So I like the way that sounds. I'll still get used to pronouncing this first name. Sorry, Mr. Black. We'll figure this out. But yeah, I like the way that sounds. So adding these two young men to the defensive line, happy for that.
And it seems like he can play both because he has a quote here talking about, hey, I'm willing to play wherever they need me. So I'm assuming he just played defensive tackle, defensive end. I'm not sure where else he would have played. So
wide receiver.
Yeah, he was their quarterback, and man, he was fast. Now,
for a minute, I started to worry that was what going to be the case. Like, is this guy the new quarterback? Like, what are we talking about here? We need to pick somebody.
A little bit of a surprise, but no, it was good. Like I said, I did a lot of study on the draft, but I could tell you probably the first round or two. So again, don't know that much about him. I like what he brings to the table. The fact he's a big guy, he can play defensive line. And again, a little freaked out about the defense after the end of last year. And again, Yaha Black, you've got Benton, you've got Derek Harmon, not expecting him to start, but we need more depth on the defensive line. The depth guys are going to play a lot. So I like the fact, it seems like Black could be a guy that could come in and do that, which is good. I was hoping Paul would be here because I thought Paul might have some thoughts on this next guy. The Steelers did get a quarterback, Will Howard from Ohio State. Boy, Joe, I don't know what to say about Will Howard. I like the guy personally. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a fiery, intensive guy. I think he's got a good arm. It's not stunning. I mean, it's not going to blow you away. But if you don't know much about him, watch his John Gruden. It's on YouTube.
Watched it.
Yeah, and Gruden loves it. Now, I think Gruden had a little bit of unfair comparisons to Josh Allen. I don't think Will Howard is comparable to Josh Allen exactly, but there's a little
big thing that he kept pointing out was purely on size. He is the exact same height and weight that Josh Allen was coming out of the draft as well. He just kept drawing that comparison, and it felt like a lot of times he was focusing on size. He didn't really get into the way Josh Allen reads defenses. He didn't really get into that. He was just going on and on about size.
I will say Will Howard does have a similar running style to Allen. Now, Allen runs a lot more than Howard, but he does run for Ohio State. He's kind of like he runs like Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen runs more and is a little bit better than Will Howard, but you get that same feel. It's almost like a Josh Allen light. It's definitely not the skill level of Josh Allen right now, but it's the same type of play. I will say, and I don't know how to make of this. You look at Ohio State. Their receivers were Emeka Egbuka, which was a first-round draft pick of the Buccaneers. You got Jeremiah Smith, who could be the top wide receiver in college football right now. He was a freshman last year. Ohio State had 2 running backs, both drafted in the second round. So they pretty much had a draft starting lineup. You know what I mean?
Right.
Very good players all around him. So Will Howard looked good with those guys around him.
Sure.
Now, you can make an argument saying, dang, any quarterback with those guys around him would have looked a lot better. I don't know. But again,
maybe, but the backside of that is going to be any quarterback's going to look good throwing to DK Metcalf and George Pickens.
Right.
And 3 starting caliber running backs.
Yeah. And I like Will Howard's moxie. I think he's got the personality, attitude that could definitely lead the NFL team. I don't know. I guess the criticism I have with him right now, I don't know if I can equate him to a franchise quarterback. But here's where I love the pick, okay? And I was kind of gushing on our chat a little bit. I love the fact they got him in the 6th round.
Yeah.
You look at last year, it was like 8 of the top 11 picks for quarterbacks. I literally said on a podcast with Mike Brown, we talked a lot of Ohio State. I said, look, you may have to spend a first-round draft pick on because the NFL overdrafts quarterbacks. Now, obviously, this year was not like that. But I love the fact that he's a 6th-round draft pick. Think back to the conversation we had with Paul a couple weeks ago. Paul was like, wouldn't it be great to develop a guy? Well, you can.
Yep.
To me, I don't care if Aaron Rodgers plays or doesn't play. Will Howard could easily be a 3rd-string quarterback this year. I'm totally fine with it. Now, if Will Howard goes into the training camp and lights him up and you're like, dang, this kid could be really great, yeah, maybe you play him, but you don't have to play him. Here's the problem with Kenny Pickett. And, Joe, Will Howard and Kenny Pickett could have comparable career paths. We don't know that. But with Kenny Pickett, 1st-round draft pick, you had to push him in. Pressure, push him in. You don't have to do that with Will Howard. I think that can make Will Howard better down the line. Look at Mason Rudolph. They kind of pushed him a little bit when Ben got hurt. Mason's first year wasn't that great. Mason played a lot better when he played down the road. I think Will Howard, if he can start playing 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th year, Will Howard could be a pretty good quarterback, I think.
I don't disagree with that at all. I do think when the Steelers are looking at all angles on this, they have Mason back for this year. And I think if they looked at where the quarterbacks coming out of the draft were right now, not very many of them were better than rolling with Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's great weapons out there, and Rudolph can get the ball to them. Like that's possible. If things come through with Rodgers, they're able to come to a place where the team feels okay monetarily. He is obviously an experienced and stellar quarterback and still can put up good numbers. So he's not a downgrade at all if you have the opportunity to bring him in. If you don't, you're good. You still have Mason who can deliver the ball, and yes, through the draft or through free agency, we did not make an automatic categorical jump at quarterback. But as to our conversation with Paul before, maybe we don't have to have that. You can't have it at all times. There aren't enough great quarterbacks out there, franchise quarterbacks that are available all the time. And some of these guys who got drafted high, Cam Ward, love his tape. But a lot of times you love the tape of somebody who's drafted right up front. And, Trevor Lawrence was a good quarterback in college. You can't say he hasn't had weapons. He hasn't had great coaching. But just because somebody's drafted number 1 overall doesn't make him automatically Tom Brady. That doesn't automatically happen.
And what would you have had to trade to get up to number 1 to take Cam Ward or Trevor Lawrence?
Oh, my gosh.
Now, if it was like, oh, you only have to trade a 4th-round pick for Trevor Lawrence, I might say, oh, maybe we should have done
Oh,
that. But
sure.
no, it would have been at
No,
least
you would have
one
been throwing
picks.
away the next 4 years of draft.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm totally fine with that. I will say, and again, this is what Omar Khan's saying. I'm not saying they're definitely doing this. Before the draft, he said, we need to bring in 2 more quarterbacks, a vet and a young one. Now, Rooney on Pittsburgh radio show before the draft was sounded very optimistic that Rodgers was coming. Like, oh yeah, he'll come. Yeah. And there was some Steelers writers automatically projecting the starting lineup with Aaron Rodgers. No decision has been made, and either Rooney's smart and knows, hey, this guy needs his time, he's coming, or Rooney's like the, what do you call it? You like a girl, you have no idea if she'll like you back or not, and then she ends up saying, "Yep, I don't like you." So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how, what do you call it? How astute Rooney is on projecting if guys are coming or not. But I'm good because they're not going to win the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, it might be a more fun year. Maybe they'll win a game in the playoffs, but that's going to be it. I would be fine with Mason Rudolph. One, I like the guy. He's not a jerk or a-hole or whatever. The other thing is, if things falter with Mason Rudolph, say they win 6 or 7 games, they're going to get a higher draft pick that they can go get a quarterback. Or, if they win 6 games, maybe you see Will Howard at the end of the year, and you figure out, could Will Howard be that quarterback? And if not, there's a better quarterback class coming out next year that could help if the Steelers have a bad year. So bring it on. I'm good either way.
Yeah, I'm excited. I like a lot of what the interview stuff that I've seen with Will Howard. He seems to approach things the right way. And it's so funny the way that everybody wants to twist everything. Will Howard says something about, I feel like my mission is to make all of the teams that passed on me, who chose a quarterback that wasn't me, is to make them regret having chosen somebody else.
Well,
he made that statement, and everybody's turned it into, oh, they're definitely going to regret. No, that's his drive right now, to make other teams. That drove him in college. The fact that he wasn't picked at Penn State, the fact that he wasn't picked at, he had a whole list of things in that interview, a whole list of places that passed on him. And so he went to Kansas State, and he ended up winning a Big 12 championship. And then he transferred to Ohio State, and he ended up winning the national championship. I want that guy who finds the drive out of those setbacks. Sometimes those guys are stronger than the guy who's just been more talented than everybody else on the field. That's to have somebody who comes in with that drive. He starts taking notes every time John Gruden starts talking. He's taking down notes. Oh, I love the way that works. Ooh, I like that play. Oh, I'm really excited about this thing over here. And the passionate way that he talked about plays that were successful when he was working at Kansas State, when he was working at Ohio State. It was just great. I love that. I love that out of a guy. Watching him get all fired up and yell at Jack Sawyer. That was fantastic. I love the passion of that guy. If you can temper that with a low enough ego to be teachable and to be trainable and to be a teammate, and not just the way we've seen quarterbacks get all fired up because of their own egos. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a concern that teams had with the other quarterback that did not get selected. That there was plenty of passion and drive and ability, and there may have been some concerns about attitude and process.
Couple quick things about Will Howard, and then we'll move on to the 7th-round picks. A lot of, and again, they picked him in the 6th round. Okay, you don't have to like Will Howard, and if Will Howard doesn't pan out, I'm not gonna like Will Howard either. I feel better about that it was the 6th round. If he got picked in the 1st round, scared the heck out of me.
Sure,
but the 6th round, I'm okay, and if he fails, I'm okay. It was interesting. College football has gotten to a place where if they don't like you, they're going to bring in somebody else. And with NIL and transfer portal and everything, guys come and go. Well, Skylar Thompson, and remember right now, he's not the number 2 quarterback for the Steelers. Skylar was a backup for the Dolphins. He actually played a playoff game when Tua was hurt. Again, I don't think you want to start Skylar Thompson, but he's played a little bit. I mean, he's not completely, hasn't played at all. Well, Skylar Thompson beat Will Howard out in Kansas State because that's where Will Howard started his career. We're not sure if he beat him out because he was a better player or if they were just like, hey, we like this guy. We're going to start him. And Will Howard says, hey, I want to try to go somewhere else. So some people are like, why did you draft a guy that couldn't even beat out Skylar Thompson? So who knows?
Because that guy went somewhere else and won the national championship.
Right, where Skylar Thompson did. He played for Kansas State, and Kansas State was ho-hum, so who knows? It was funny. I will tell you from watching Ohio State last year, Will Howard had one bad game, and it really mystified Ohio State fans against Michigan, the big rival. They hadn't beat Michigan for a couple straight years. Will Howard came in that game. For some reason, they had probably 3 or 4 stellar wide receivers. I mean, Ohio State's throwing in a really good receiver group. They didn't throw hardly at all, and Michigan beating them. I don't know what happened, but Will Howard came back from that and had really great games against Tennessee. I think he had 300-plus yards. They just mangled Oregon. I think the only reason why he didn't get 300 yards is they scored 40 points in the first half. And then, I think he completed his first 15 passes in the championship game against Notre Dame. So, he came back from that one bad game and,
right.
really, really well. So we'll see what happens. Joe, I'm tired of the family connections with the Steelers. I know it's probably a bad thing to say because we love the Hayward brothers and all this other stuff. In the 7th round, the Steelers pick Carson Brunner. And if you're like, hey, didn't they have a name Mark Brunner? Yes, they did. It's Mark's son, Carson. I don't know. I have no idea who the heck Carson Brunner is. It looks like he's had a decent career with the University of Washington. He's got tackles. He plays special teams. Obviously, you always could use some more special teams guys. So who knows? Carson Brunner could be actually half decent. And I know he got drafted in the 7th round. We don't need to be an automatic starter. But why do we keep on drafting family members? Let's stop this, Joe.
Why?
I don't know, man.
When has it been bad? Let's stop it at any point when it stops working out.
Well, I mean,
is it not working?
Kim's brother has been okay.
He's a utility guy. He's not. Right. They're not firing other perfectly qualified tight ends to keep him around, but they're using a guy who, like we're talking about up and down this draft order, they look at some dude, they pass the vibe check. This is a guy who works the way we work. He sees what we're seeing. He thinks the way that we think and understands playing football the way the Steelers want to play football. And so the fact that these guys are family, the way that they approach the thing, the whole job is going to be similar. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're going to go out and pick, you have a group of 50 guys, you're trying to decide how do you decipher how somebody is going to approach the game? You know what I'm saying? We got 50 people and you're trying to get people in the door who work the way we work. And you got 50 guys and one of them is the relative of somebody who used to work here. Is he there now? No. Is he going to understand the way that we do this? Yes, he is. Mm-hmm. I think I want that guy over there. All things being equal, 50 equal dudes. That guy's related to somebody who knows somebody here. I want that guy.
Okay. I mean, I don't have that much bad feelings about him. I don't know. I don't know who you pick in the 7th round.
It's also in the 7th round. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You got a couple picks down there. You got to pick somebody. Might as well pick somebody. Make somebody happy. Make a nice story. Make a nice story about the guy.
Yeah. Another guy we don't know too much about, Dante Kent. He's a cornerback who went in the 7th round. Mm-hmm. He's from Central Michigan. It was interesting. people said the Steelers were kind of interested in picking a quarterback, so they picked him. He's fast. I hear he runs a 4.3 40. He also returns punts. He had some good punt return totals for Central Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to have an opinion either way. I mean, he's a 7th-round pick, so let's don't murder the guy. I don't know what to say about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it may just be a thing that they just need cornerbacks named Dante, and so there's you gotta keep the whole name thing going on.
Yeah, well, and they don't need a starter, so hey, he's a guy you take a flyer on. I mean, they've got 3 or 4
and
guys.
If he's capable of contributing in the special teams and in the kick return area, great.
And they got started. That's
I'm gonna need to take a quick break.
Okay.
I'm gonna need like 2 seconds.
Okay, I'll keep talking.
I'm about to lose it. So there you go. All right, then you can click back in right here.
Yeah. I'll keep talking. You come back when you're done with your break. We'll put it that way. All right. Yeah. So I thought overall pretty decent draft. If I had to grade him, okay, I show when he comes back. I graded B. I think it was okay. Nothing super sexy, what I say, but I thought it did what the Steelers needed to do. Steelers are a tough-nosed team. I think they had that. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens at quarterback. Will Aaron Rodgers come? If he doesn't, I still think the Steelers go after a veteran. Could it be Kirk Cousins? He's supposedly on the trade market. I think another guy they could look at, maybe Will Levis from Tennessee. I know he didn't pan out too well at Tennessee, and Tennessee got Cam Ward. Will Levis has got a pretty good arm. Why not take a flyer on him? Try him out for a year. And he doesn't have to even start. Give him the mix. Try him out in the practice field. See where he's at. So, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with that. I'll look at some of the other stuff going on in the draft. I want to hear Joe's opinion on some of this, but let's start by who had good drafts. I think the Browns, believe it or not, had a decent draft. They traded the ability to draft Travis Hunter, but they got Jacksonville's first-round draft pick. That could be a pretty high pick next year. And again, a lot of quarterbacks are available. JOK, their linebacker, didn't look too great. So it was impressive to see what they did. Joe, a couple quick questions before we move on to some of our funny stuff, or what we think is funny. Grade. How would you just grade the overall draft for the Steelers?
Oh, I'm feeling like B+.
Okay.
Feeling good about it. Not blows me away, but, it's definitely, I have good hope for the upcoming season. There's a game plan, there's a scheme, and they're addressing issues that are of concern. They weren't always going to be able to solve all of their problems with home run swings on everything, but everything was a good solid double up the middle. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I saw some draft grades that were really downgrading the pick of Jack Sawyer. Like that was the worst pick of the Steelers draft. And I don't really fully understand why, but okay.
I mean, like I said, if he's comparable to Mike Vrabel, you might say, oh, he wasn't a star. But Mike Vrabel was a really good player. And I would say a B. You know what I mean? Now, if some of these guys come all pros, you say, hey, it's A+. And if some of these guys fall flat, you grade them down. But I think at the moment, I think a B is fine. Right? It wasn't super sexy, but it was tough guys that definitely fit the mold, and we definitely see some potential for it. So I think a B or B+ is definitely fair to say. Couple quick thoughts about some of the rest of the draft. I thought maybe we take a quick look at the AFC North. The Bengals picked some decent guys, nothing too spectacular. The Ravens had some decent picks. I don't know. I don't look at either team as doing really well or really bad. I mean, if you had to throw a grade, maybe a C for both. I thought the Browns had an interesting draft. I kind of chuckled when they first traded away number 2, thinking, oh, what are they going to get back? Are they going to screw things up? They actually got a pretty good haul back for what they picked. They got Mason Graham at 5. I don't know if there's that much difference between Mason Graham at defensive line and Derek Harmon, to be honest with you. But I think the selling point of it was they got an extra second-round pick, 36 overall, which is good. And they got the Jacksonville's first-round pick next year, which is good. So I thought overall it was a pretty good draft for him. Quarterback, Dillon Gabriel. Don't know too much about him, but I heard the Browns really liked him. They actually have him rated higher than Shedeur Sanders. As we well know, Sanders dropped like a rock in the draft. And I think they got to a place in the 5th round where they said, look, Shedeur Sanders is still out there. Let's give it a shot. Why not? And if you look at the Browns' history with crappy quarterback picks, why not pick another guy? You got 2 darts to throw against the board. Are you going to miss both ones? The hope is maybe one at least hits the draft board a little bit. And again, it's kind of like the Will Howard conversation. If you pick Shedeur number 2 and he falters, you get laughed at. If he's 5th round and he falters, just kind of, And I think the same thing with Dillon Gabriel.
I suppose, but I it's hard for me not to feel like that's a tremendous lack of faith in your pick in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I'd be pissed if I was Dillon Gabriel. I would. Let me just say that.
Yeah, I think you did a tremendous disservice to that young man by doing that. If ultimately you wanted Shedeur Sanders on your team, why didn't you just take him in the 3rd? It just seems like a real weird game plan.
Well, I will say, I've heard they definitely like Dillon Gabriel more. That's why Dillon Gabriel was a 3rd round pick.
That's possible that it was cherry picked, but I gotta say that the interview stuff that I saw with him, what's his name? Gabriel?
Oh, no. Gabriel. Well, I mean,
I saw an interview with him, and man, I gotta tell you, he just looked like he looked like a 40-watt bulb in place of a 100-watt bulb. He did not seem particularly bright.
It was funny because I shared with you a funny clip of him like, oh, they shouldn't play football in the winter, and football is a lot better than the high. And it was like, all right, meet your Cleveland quarterback who's playing in a lot of cool weather games.
Rough, bro. That was a rough interview to be giving when you're getting ready to go into Cleveland. Yeah, it's just the way he was processing those questions. Just I was very taken aback by it. But hopefully they've got a good game plan and they know what they want to do with him. I don't understand why you have three strong contender, like starting quality quarterbacks on your roster, and then you drafted 2 more. What are you going to do with all these quarterbacks? And you just hired 2 of them. Well, and I think we're all fairly confident they're not going to go back to Deshaun Watson at all, but he's still on your roster.
Well, the only reason why he's on your roster is because it's going to cost your salary cap a lot more. I mean, Deshaun Watson.
Right. No, yeah, he's not coming back, but good grief.
Well, I would say too, and I'm sure there's an interview out there. I haven't come across it yet. It was funny. Dillon Gabriel had a pretty good year for Oregon last year. When Oregon played Ohio State in the regular season, Oregon won. It was like a wild high scoring, like 35-34. Like both offenses did really well. I remember watching that game. Dillon Gabriel looked good. He was like throwing touchdowns all over the place. It was interesting. Ohio State and Oregon played again in the Rose Bowl. Ohio State shut him down. I mean, they were up by like 35 in the first half, and Gabriel couldn't do anything. And he got a couple gift touchdowns at the end. But it was interesting, like a good defense like Ohio State with Jack Sawyer and everybody else. What did they see? Because, again, the first game, Dillon Gabriel played really well. Second game, Dillon Gabriel was horrible. So I don't know. Hard to say. I will say, and again, and hey, if Paul can't make it, Paul can't make it. I would have liked to see Paul's reaction because Paul's not a Browns fan. He is a Kenny Pickett fan. You talk about Dillon Gabriel being ticked. What do you think Kenny Pickett's thinking right now?
Yeah, we're going to be able to talk with him about that in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'll come up sometime before the season starts. I will say, too, it lends a really interesting question about what happens in your quarterback room. Because generally speaking, you could have 4 or 5 guys on your roster. Watson's going to be on injured reserve, so you don't have to worry about him. But, man, they can't have, unless they're really, for some reason, choose to have 4 quarterbacks on the roster, look at what's going to happen. Your 4th quarterback, if you put him on the practice squad, a team can scoop him up really easily by just placing him on their roster somewhere. So what do? I mean, you would think Joe Flacco would be their starting quarterback, the first guy to go to. So if they do that, I guess the good thing about Kenny Pickett is he could start if the wheels fall off Flacco or if he gets hurt. I mean, if you don't keep Pickett, then are you rushing Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders in if Flacco doesn't do well? I mean, what do you do? But if you keep Pickett on your team, now in essence, you have to cut Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. They're leaving themselves with some pretty tough choices right away.
I mean, yes and no. All of these same teams that were worried about picking them up off of your practice squad have all passed on both of these guys multiple times.
Right, but you would think if Shedeur Sanders shows anything during training camp, like if he comes in with a good attitude,
what's he going to show that's different from what we already know? I don't.
But look,
he's
how
not going to all of a sudden explode into somebody we didn't already see. We've already seen great things out of him. But he's not an incapable quarterback.
But unless
he just may also be he may be 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. You know what I'm saying? Like, they may just be a lot.
Right, but I think if he shows anything, look at the NFL quarterback. There's some bad quarterbacking. And somebody's going to be like, all right, we'll pick him up to be our 3rd-string quarterback. I mean, they're not going to pick him up to make him their franchise, but it was just a weird path for the Browns. Maybe that means Kenny Pickett's gone. And honestly, we've seen Kenny Pickett play for Pittsburgh. I mean, would that shock us? I mean, we're not going to be like, oh, no, not Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean? I don't know. I will tell you, if I'm Kenny Pickett, I'm depressed. And it's funny. And, Paul looked at it as maybe Mike Tomlin wasn't being honest with Kenny Pickett. But, Joe, look what happened. Pickett felt that Tomlin misled him about, like, he wanted to be the starter of Russell Wilson. I mean, come on. And then, so Pickett asked for a trade. Obviously, Pickett, I'm sure, felt okay at being the backup behind Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. But, he got traded to the Browns. And then remember what Pickett said when he came. He's like, hey, I'm going to try to be the starter. And, first he signed Joe Flacco, now Dillon Gabriel, now, Shedeur Sanders. I'm wondering if part of Kenny Pickett's problem is he may not be listening to what people are saying. I mean, I've done that work before where somebody's like, oh, you're not the guy. And you're like, well, maybe they meant this or whatever, And I think Kenny Pickett's got the same problem. It's stunning, to be honest with you. So I don't know.
Well, he keeps getting put in that position, and that's a difficult place to be in because there's a certain level to which there's nothing he can change about it. He can't do anything about that. Because they brought him in, and he felt like he had a legitimate shot at being the starter at a certain point, and then they just kept adding pieces around him, and now it's a pretty crowded room. And he hasn't had a chance to prove anything different, put anything else on tape since that decision was made. So we'll see. I don't want bad things for him, but I don't necessarily see this as a great opportunity. But on the plus side, he now has Deontay Johnson to throw to, so that should work.
I actually had, and Mike Brown is a friend. I love having Mike Brown on my podcast. But Mike was like, "Man, they got Deontay Johnson. He's a good quarterback." I'm like, "Mike, hate to throw cold water on you, but how many teams did you play for last year?" He's like, "Oh, okay,
4, right? It was 4
yes."
teams last year.
And you never know. And I guess maybe the Browns' argument is, let's bring him in and see what he does. But I wouldn't count on Deontay Johnson being a quality receiver for you. Maybe you bring him in, try him out. What do you have to lose? But if you're really looking at him as being a key component, you're sadly mistaken, to be honest. Every podcast and sports talk show and chat show and ESPN's talked about this. So let's make this part of it quick. But Shedeur Sanders, let me give you my take real quick and tell me if you agree or not. I've heard collusion, I've heard racism, I've heard a bunch of other stuff. I don't think that's the case. I think these quarterback, you talk about bringing a quarterback in for a visit. The Giants on Hard Knocks a couple years ago, Brian Daboll, they showed some of his visits with like Jaden Daniels and J.J. McCarthy. These quarterback, some of these interviews are tough. I mean, they're like, hey, go up, draw this picture, draw your play. What you're thinking, who you going to, repeat these combinations back to us. Like they're testing their intelligence and everything. And, Jaden Daniels, I remember watching his, and he did really well. And I think Will Howard did well, like on the John Gruden thing. They said Shedeur didn't do well. And, it had nothing to do with his race or anything. I think he just wasn't prepared. Have you ever, geez, all my Malone professors that may or may not be listening to this are going to say, yeah, Chris was not prepared for some tests. Yeah, if you're not prepared for a test, you're going to look really bad. And I don't think it was Dillon. I don't think it was the fact he's black or anything. I think Shedeur just wasn't prepared. When you're not prepared, you're not going to look that good. And I think enough teams started feeling that way. There were some reports saying that he was so certain he was going to get drafted high, he kind of winged it with some of the other teams. And you get to the point where not every team in the NFL was looking for a quarterback either. So the teams that were looking for a quarterback picked other guys, and that's what happened. I don't think it was it's not collusion, Joe, because it only takes one team to say, hey, this is a good quarterback. And if he's good for them, then screw the other teams. You know what I mean? I just think he made a lot of swings and misses during the draft interview process. That's my take.
If he even swung. If the situation that you're talking about is the case, he just didn't really prepare because he thought he was going to somewhere else. And you hate to feel like that comes back to bite you. But if he wasn't prepared, he wasn't prepared, or wasn't trying, or whatever it might be. Not that he's incapable, because he obviously is a capable quarterback. Yeah. I think when it's entirely possible for a series of teams to have a direction that they're planning to go for the draft, and they stick with that, and the piece of the puzzle that keeps falling through was Sanders. But it was so interesting how many people wanted to stand up and yell racism, and especially for a confident young black man, especially the son of a very outspoken leader of his community in Dillon. But other African-American players were chosen. The first player off the board was African-American. I don't know if I understand why you focused all of your hope for a culture on this one player. And it just seems so odd to me that that's the only focus, and you're just going to ignore all of the other black players that were drafted. I don't understand that. That's the limits of my understanding.
I talked to a guy I worked with on Sunday night. We were scratching our heads over this. After work, we were sitting in the newsroom, and he's of color, and we were just talking about the Shedeur Sanders thing, and he didn't call collision racism. He just was like, I don't know what it was. And I was telling him, I kind of compared it to when he and I interviewed at the station. I said, look, it's not even if you're black or white or whatever. you've got to connect with who you're interviewing with. You know what I mean? And the thing that's tough is there's black people, white people, Asian people, whatever race you want to throw at it, can be very confident. And the interviewer could be like, whoa, this is great. They're confident. And they could be like, oh, this rubs me the wrong way. And it doesn't have to be a race issue or anything. It's just you have to sell the person you're interviewing with on if you're the guy. And for me, it's okay, our local TV station. For these guys as NFL quarterbacks. And I think for some reason, Shedeur just didn't connect. I've heard Cam Ward was like, hey, let me come in. I'll help you out. I'll make you better. Jaden Daniels did the same thing. Those guys got drafted high. Shedeur didn't. And I think it was just a vibe. And, if you talk to these GMs and said, why'd you pass? They may not have a solid reason why. They just said, I just didn't feel it, maybe. And look, I use the same kind of personality when I interview for jobs. There's some jobs I've gotten. There's some jobs I haven't. And I've done the same thing. Well, maybe part of it is not everyone's buying what you're selling. You know what I mean? And I think Shedeur's vibe, a lot more people weren't buying it. My vibe, some people like it, some people don't. Shedeur definitely went the wrong way. And maybe there's not even the right answer to telling Shedeur what he did wrong. It's just the vibe didn't, ring true. It's tough. It's hard. Well, and that's what we say all job interviews. You know what I mean? Why did one person get picked over the other? Yeah, maybe they had better interview, maybe they had a bit more experience, or maybe the interviewer just said, "Hey, I like this person better than the other person." Why?
Yeah, there's a whole thing of that. As a theater teacher, I talk to my student directors a lot about why you cast a certain person, and usually there's 4 things. One, just somebody's capacity to act. They're just a good actor. They can play anything. They're great. Second would be whether or not they fit the role. You have Kip Balloons. Whether or not they fit the role. They just walk in the door and they are that person, and if they could just be themselves and do that, then they're great. The third would be whether or not they match with other people that you're casting. You know what I'm saying? Like these 2 people just work really well together. For me, I think they're a good romantic pair, or they're a good buddy cop pair, or whatever it might be, that they're going to work with the other actors. And then the fourth one is just whether or not they vibe with you. This is somebody that I understand why I don't have to give them a lot of direction, because they know what I'm thinking. They're on the same wavelength. And that if you go down like great movies and you look at Coen Brothers movies, you look at it's Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio with Martin Scorsese. He works with those guys so much often because they're just in the same mindset. Martin Scorsese doesn't have to go up and convince Robert De Niro to do something. Robert De Niro can look at the look at his face when he's over looking at the monitor and go, I know exactly what he wants. I know what he's not liking about that performance, and we're going to roll that back, and he's going to tell me this. And I just go, he looks at it and says, I got it. I know exactly what you need. Let's do it again. And so you just vibe with certain people, whether or not there are other considerations. It's just like this mental connection that you have.
And granted, if you're making those decisions totally based on race or like, their sexuality or anything else like that, okay, that becomes a problem. But again, if you're making choices just based on, hey, look, I'm connecting with this person, and especially in NFL, that's how you pick. Now, the guy I was talking to the other day, he raised a good point saying, well, like Kaleb Williams last year, he was a little odd with some of his choices, like he painted his fingernails and everything else. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're not picking a guy because he paints his fingernails, that's a problem. But if you say, hey, he's so eccentric, he may not be a good leader of a team, okay, it's okay not to pick him because he paints his fingernails or whatever. Again, it's just the way you connect. Now, if you're not connecting with someone just based on a physical attribute or race, religion, sexuality, or whatever, okay, that's a problem. But if you're sitting there and you really say, hey, this isn't working, then you don't pick the guy. And again, if a lot of people in the NFL did that, something should have said rub people the wrong way. And it's not racing because if it was racing, Cam Ward wouldn't have gone number one. It's just a way Shedeur acted. It just rubbed him the wrong way. And good for him. He's got a chance to redeem himself. If I'm Shedeur, I'll ball out for Cleveland and prove everybody wrong. But we'll see how he reacts. I'm curious to see what happens. As a Steelers fan, I hope he doesn't ball out, but I'll be curious to see what happens with him. So I don't know. That's kind of where we sit with that. Couple of the other things about the draft real quick. Did you see this whole thing? And this is breaking today. They found out that so I didn't know this, Joe. If you're a NFL draft prospect, the NFL gives you a phone. Okay, this is not your cell phone. They give you another phone. They say, look, we're going to share this number with the coaches and GMs. So when you get chosen, they're calling you on this phone. It's not like you have to wonder, is this a team or is this a spam call or whatever? They know that's the case. Well, I'm sure you probably saw on Twitter, Shedeur got pranked in the second round. They say, hey, this is the Saints. We're going to pick you up. He's like, oh, really? And the guy's like, no, we're not. And then he hangs up. Apparently, the same person did that with a couple other players, too. It was the son of the Falcons defensive coordinator. Apparently, they're finding the team and the coach. I don't know, Joe.
It was some kids from there at Ole Miss, I think.
Yeah, his son's 21. So, again, young guy. We didn't always make wise choices at 21. But he's 21. It's not like he's 5 or something. You know what I mean? I don't know.
It's not like he wasn't aware that wasn't going to be cool.
Yeah. Now, apparently he apologized. Sanders was okay with it. I'm sure Sanders was a little perturbed, but he was going to scream about it in public. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I don't want to dismiss it as child's play, but to find somebody, especially assistant coach, is not making that much money. I guess what you try to do is if you make
he gave out a number he wasn't supposed to give out. He also is a grown man and knows what he wasn't supposed to do.
Well, and
just to it.
If you make a harsh enough penalty, then no one's going to do it again. If you just say, "Oh, it's going to be a $5 fine," then everyone will do it. They'll be like, "Yeah, here's $5. I'll screw around." So I don't know. Hard to say. Very different. Let's see. Anything else on the draft? So I think we talked about everything. One thing, I always like playing the name game. I'm not sure if you guys like me playing the name game, but we had a big long discussion about how the fact that the Steelers, he used to be quarterback coach. Now he was kind of like a special assistant. They had a guy named Mike Sullivan. Well, if you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, the Penguins had a head coach named Mike Sullivan. And we probably spent, 3 hours, one podcast trying to figure out, does Mike Sullivan walk in the wrong locker room? Does he have to give ID to prove he's the right Mike Sullivan? Well, Pittsburgh took care of that. They must have listened to the podcast we did years and years ago because the Penguins fired Mike Sullivan. And the same day, the Steelers went to Mike Sullivan and said, hey, your services are no longer needed. We have no more Mike Sullivans in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. The whole city of Pittsburgh took care of that problem.
Mike Sullivan
came together. Also, 12 different dudes named Mike Sullivan were kicked out of the city.
Yes. The guy working the fries at McDonald's. They're like,
exactly.
Sorry,
get out. Mike Sullivan, the guy who does roofing and siding. Yes. Get out.
We're purging Mike Sullivan. Could that help Pittsburgh?
Mike Sullivan, DDS. Go fix somebody else's teeth.
Yeah. Could this help Pittsburgh? Because, Steelers are kind of in a malaise. The Penguins aren't doing that well. Penguins have one of the worst records in the NHL this year, which is weird. You think this will help us? Is this like our purge, Joe?
We were worried about Mike Sullivan's. We had a Mike Sullivan problem.
Yeah. Are the Penguins going to be a Stanley Cup contender? Steelers are going to win the Super Bowl? It's going to be back in the good old days, Joe. Well, we got rid of Mike Sullivan's, and now we're
back in the day when there were 0 Mike Sullivans.
Oh,
it's going to be heaven. I feel like the Pirates need to hire somebody named Mike Sullivan just so they can fire him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's rough, but yeah, we're glad that's gone. Any other thoughts on the Steelers before we get to some more of the fun stuff?
No.
Okay, I don't know if I put this on our notes, but I had good conversation about this, Joe. We have to add this, so I'm going to add this to you. This is football related. CBS Sunday morning. Bill Belichick, been a thorn in the side of the Steelers for a long time as a Patriots head coach. We know he's no longer with the NFL. He got hired as the head coach for North Carolina. And, Bill Belichick is recruiting players, and he recruited a girlfriend, a young, mid-20s girlfriend, 5-star prospect, I'd say, right, Joe? I don't know. Did you see? Joe looks nervous. I don't know.
Why are you including me in this in that way?
Yeah.
That just thank you.
I don't know if you've heard the story. Belichick is writing a book. So you write a book, you go on podcasts, TV shows, do interviews. So CBS Sunday morning, it's kind of a show for older people. He goes on there, does an interview. Belichick has never been the trendy clothes wearer. He was wearing a navy shirt with like a hole in the top and everything. And people are like, dude, you're the North Carolina head coach. Shouldn't you wear a North Carolina shirt? You're telling people, hey, I'm the North Carolina coach. Well, his young girlfriend, and some people have been critical because they posted Instagram photos. She's with him in practice. She's kind of helping him run the practice. There was a photo of a bare-chested Belichick on the beach. Did you see this one? He was stretching with his legs up in the air, and his girlfriend, he was holding up his girlfriend by his feet. And his girlfriend was doing some type of yoga pose on there. And, that created a lot of talk. Well, during the interview, the CBS interviewer was noticed that she was around. So he asked about, wow, what do you say about, people coming in a relationship? Because Belichick's in his 70s, this girl's in her 20s. So it's a little bit of age difference there. And Belichick did I don't care what other people say, I just live my life, blah, blah, blah. And then the interviewer was like, hey, how'd you guys meet? And you hear this girl's voice in the background. Nope, we're not answering that. Apparently, she walked out of the interview too. So, she released.
Yeah, I did not see that.
Yeah, she released a statement today, and people were kind of wondering. Seeing a couple stories about how some Belichick friends were like, "Hey, what's going on here?" I don't know, Joe. Should this be a topic? Maybe not even for us. Should this become a big deal for North Carolina football fans, I guess, or Bill Belichick fans, or haters?
I don't know. I mean, those kinds of stories are always a little bit strange. That's just weird. And it's one of those things that that it's weird. Whatever the story is going to be weird because of the way that they reacted, because of the way that she reacted.
Sure.
It's not like, oh, we had some friends, they introduced us. That is not the story.
Right.
If that were the story, then you just say that. If the story was a little bit questionable, possibly a little sketch, then this is how you answer the question.
We are married to women our age, or roughly our age. I mean, not too far of an age difference. And again, I'm with my wife for life. I'm not going to sit here and say what would happen if we're not together, or if she dies or I die or whatever. Yeah, I don't think if I'm in my 70s, I'd be dating a 20-year-old. Probably not. But, I think we make a little bit too much of the weirdness of it. Is it for me? No. Is it weird if he does it? Yes. But if he's come to grips with it and she's come to grips with it, I don't know. We're making this out to be this evil, horrible relationship. I mean, is he talking to his kids about it? Is his kids being honest with him? And again, that's a discussion that we don't know the Belichick's are going to release that part of it. But, I don't have as big of an issue with it as some people might. I mean, if he's being honest with his family, if his family's being honest with him, if they're working through whatever issues come across, and if this girl and her parents are understanding and they're working through every issues they come across, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? It is weird in the heck. I understand that. But she's in her 20s. I mean, it's not like she's 15 or something. I mean, let them live. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean,
yeah, it ain't for me. I'm not saying it for me, but I'm just saying. I mean, whatever.
You're a public figure.
Yeah.
You can't. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it because I'm not personally that interested in it. I think it's a little weird. I think it is probably it's probably a lot to expect of people to think that they're just going to not pay attention.
Right.
Like no one's going to make a deal of it. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a lot to expect that a 70-year-old man is going to get into this relationship, and he's going to be a very public figure, being the head coach of a college football team, when it's very clear that this is somebody who is roughly of an age of a college student.
She is a little bit older, but she's a lot closer to a college student than he is.
Right. Well, I mean, let's stretch it and say that she's the age of a graduate student. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like she's not far enough away from being the age of a student that he is now a staff member at a school where she could reasonably be a student. And that is awkward. It's awkward ethically as somebody who has been a college professor. It's weird to think that you're just not going to get any questions about it. I think that's expecting a lot of people with human nature.
Yeah,
but do we need to spend a lot more time on it? No, I don't think so.
Right. Well, let's leave it at this because we could go crazy all night, and I don't want to do that either. I kind of wonder, and again, Belichick's not self-deprecating. He's not that type of guy. Everyone wants to know, well, what happened? Wouldn't Belichick just get office if he just says, look, she's a cute girl, and I'm an American guy. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. No.
It's creepy. No. It's creepy. Yeah. But again, it's legal. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not for me. If my dad and my dad's rest in peace. I mean, he's been gone for about 10 years. If my dad would have dated a 24-year-old, I would have had an issue with it myself. And I would imagine that Belichick's family is kind of a little bit weird than that, we guess. But I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it's too. I don't want to drop names.
But you're going to say it, and so
yeah. I had a family situation where a family member dated after their spouse died, and it was someone the same age, and it posed a problem in the family. And my issue with it was nobody was talking about it. It was like, guys, just talk about it. You know what I mean? Hey, family member, I don't like how you're dating again. Or the family member could say, hey, look, I miss my spouse. I'm deciding to date again. It's an awkward as heck conversation to have if you're dating someone your age or someone a lot younger. So have that conversation. I guess that's my takeaway from it.
Yeah.
And who knows? We'll never know with Belichick. And to be honest, I feel a little creeped out even talking about right now. So let's move on. Did you see the big Twitter argument this week? I saw Mr. Beast posted something about it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a really weird Mr. Beast video.
You pay attention to this person?
I kind of like Mr. Beast videos. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure if Mr. Beast came up with it or somebody else did, but there's become this really big discussion point in podcasts, radio shows, and everything else. Somebody, again, Mr. Beast did post it. I'm not sure if he was the first one or not. Hypothetical argument. You have 100 dudes. They're ready to fight a gorilla. Who wins?
100 dudes.
Well, yeah. Boy, I don't know. And see, the weird thing
You
about
don't?
it, well,
100?
can I preface this? Because there was a very popular Columbus sports talk show I was listening to this morning that talked about this issue for 20 minutes. And as a guy, I was interested in it, but I'm like, this is kind of creepy. And I'll tell you why. One, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Okay, make fun of me if you want. I'm not someone who's going to fight people. Two, if I fought a gorilla, that sounds weird to even say, right? If I battled a gorilla,
Sure.
I would want to have like a nice fight where, you don't kill somebody. Like a boxing match. Most times in a boxing match, you fight somebody, they don't usually die. You know what I mean? you might knock them out or something. But in a fight between a gorilla and humans, it's not going to end that well. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
that nerves me. And I don't want to fight animals. Do you, Joe?
No, but why would that change 100 people, 100 men versus one gorilla?
Well, what type of guys are we talking about? Are we Jack Sawyers and TJ Watts, or is it just you and me, out of shape middle-aged dudes, or is this like athletes or tough guys? I don't know.
But there's still 100 of them.
Okay. So even like 100 Joe Frosts, Chris Hughes, and Paul Yancheks could probably be up a gorilla, right?
If they coordinated their efforts appropriately, yes. There's only one gorilla.
Here's the other thing.
If we all just ran in straight ahead and buried the thing in 50 of us, I don't know. I don't see how, unless you're thinking about like a movie or something where everybody lines up and takes their turn, and a gorilla could beat me 100 times out of 100. But that's everybody waiting in line and taking turns. Like, I don't think that's what we're talking about. I think we're talking about a group of 100 people.
Yeah. No holds.
So I don't see why there's an argument there.
Would it jar people though? Because again, if this is like duel to the death, I mean, a gorilla's going to not just ooh, I'm gonna knock you over. I mean, this is rip you apart. Well, wouldn't that be so?
But while they're ripping apart one person, 5-10 other people are jumping on top of it. Like,
yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
I would be scared though to see somebody be ripped apart. I'd be like, all right, time to run. I'll be right run the other way.
It's like, would you rather fight 10 chicken-sized horses or 1 horse-sized chicken?
Wow.
Is a chicken the size of a horse? Or 10 horses that are the size of a chicken? Because the hooves will get you, and they're fast, and whatever. But like, that's an argument to me. I think 100 is just a lot.
I've got a better.
I could see the argument if the real quandary if it's 10, if it's 20, but it's 100. 100's a lot.
But here's what scares me.
The gorilla will also eventually get tired.
We're in a world where this could happen, Joe. I mean, like 50 years ago.
No, we're not. No, we're not really.
I don't know. YouTube and crazy stuff. You never know, man. Maybe not today, but 10 years from now, you might see a Netflix special these days. Who knows? It's a strange world we live in. I want to have better challenges. Have you ever watched the series Pros Against Joes? It was a goofy game show.
No.
And then we have these guys like these, like Cordell Stewart, like after he retired from the Steelers, he would have a passing contest against Joe Frost. Could Joe Frost beat Cordell Stewart? And it would be a retired Cordell Stewart, not him at his best level. Let's all have where people are going to die, like fighting gorillas. I want to have. Did you ever watch a YouTube video where it was like 2 professional soccer players against like 300 kids? And
I've seen that. Yeah. Where it was like 3 3 professional soccer players versus a group of 100 children. But the professional soccer players had the ability to pass it to one another.
Yeah. But I want to have more challenges like that. Like, let's have that challenge again. If the 3 soccer players win, put 500 kids out there, 1,000 kids, or 10,000 kids, or whatever, That's what I'd like to watch. Because we're not going to watch this animalistic gorilla versus humans where they're all beating each other up and killing each other. I don't know. I want other contests like that. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Could, like a race between Tyreek Hill and a couple hundred kids or something, like try to figure something out. I don't know. We need something better than that. So, I don't know. So you're not into the gorilla versus man discussion. So, a couple other things. I know you and Paul voted for this a lot. It was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You got singing the praises of Chubby Checker. You guys probably each voted 100,000 times. So congratulations, Joe.
Not quite that many. Not that many times, but
okay.
But proud to know that he did make it into the Rock Hall.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the fact. I haven't followed the Rock Hall like I do other Hall of Fames, but at least Chubby's in when he's alive. I don't like this, we waited 50 years and all the guy's dead, so we'll put him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, hey, Chubby will get to enjoy it when he's alive.
Well, okay, so here's a counter argument on your point there. Just because you don't like the fact that somebody's already passed on. And this has to happen. We have to honor them while they're still alive. Yeah. Here's the problem with that. Is you give out a lot of awards to somebody who has done a lot of positive things. Right? And then you find out that they're not just a movie producer, they're Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, okay.
And they've done some very positive things and made some very positive television shows and progressed the conversation about race in the country for a long time and been a really positive figure. And then he's Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
If he's no longer alive, you're much less likely to come across him doing brand new things that you were not aware of.
Yeah, okay.
Can I say that? Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, but we're saying, does Chubby have skeletons in the closet? Like, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. It just feels like they're done at that point. They are no longer living.
Okay.
And you're less likely to then come up with brand new information that you didn't know at all about the person. As opposed to, hey, this is a really great artist. We really like this person's music. They've been very influential. And then suddenly they're Kanye. And you're like, what are you talking about? And you're like, oh, I can't listen to any of the music that you made before this because what? What are you doing? And there, we're not even just talking about one mistake or one series of mistakes, and you actually have a bit of an anger management problem, and maybe aren't as respectful to other people as you maybe should be, but like you're making multiple public statements about some very controversial subjects, and maybe you should stop talking.
Okay. So we got to protect. We got to protect Chubby.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of music, we had a discussion about this at work. Did you see Ozzy Osbourne's having his last concert this summer?
Sure.
Black Sabbath. I'm not a fan of any of these guys. But did you see who they're bringing aboard to play? This is going to be in Birmingham, England, July 5th. It'll be Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, Metallica, Slayer, Guns N' Roses, Tool, Foo Fighters. I mean, a little bit of everybody.
Yeah.
Will Paul make the trip just for Foo Fighters?
Probably not. Will Puxatawny Phil be there?
Probably.
Yeah.
That's the answer for everything we need to have. So it should be interesting. But either way, congratulations to Chubby Checker. I'm excited for him. It should be pretty good.
Yeah, man.
Now, I hate to keep mentioning it. I wish Paul was here. You guys had some interesting discussions on the Pope. picking new popes. I didn't realize we were getting that far yet.
Oh yeah, right. They got to get onto it. The other guy is gone now, so now it's time for the conclave.
Yeah, I think May 7th is our start date.
Yeah.
Okay.
They got to get everybody in. And we were just sort of joking around about our picks for who should be the next pope, like there's a draft or something.
I think we talked about this last week, but I still think, and I know they got to keep it pure, they got to keep it holy. We're not going to make it goofy like the NFL draft. No country's not going to be yelling at, popes who don't get picked or anything like that. But I really do think there needs to be, I hate to say this, Catholic Church has had some skeletons in their closet when it comes to abuse and everything. Let's kind of open this up a little bit to create a positive PR spin on it. And again, don't have Mel Kiper yelling at popes, but like I think, have some pop star who's Catholic go into the conclave. I'm sure it'll be an emotional experience for them. They'll be serious. They're Catholic. And they come back and share some good stories about what happened. And Joe, if everyone's really
can't share stories about it, that's the whole point of the conclave.
Oh,
they don't talk about it.
You can't talk about conclave.
It's Fight Club. It's Vegas. They're not allowed to talk about it, right?
Couldn't they speak of it just like it was a nice peaceful moment? Like you're not going to sit here and say, "Oh, Cardinal, Dave and Cardinal Tom were fighting," but couldn't you just say, "Hey, it was nice and fun. We loved each other and
it was a good time. We had margaritas.
Yeah,
gave each other foot massages." No, what are you talking about? No. What are you talking about?
Well, and here's the thing. Okay, what is it? What were we talking about last week? Who's the movie star that's Catholic? Wahlberg. People say Mark Wahlberg's Catholic. Bring Mark Wahlberg in, and if everybody in the Cardinals aren't that good, then just come back and say, "Hey, everybody, Mark Wahlberg's the new pope."
Technically, as long as somebody is a baptized Roman Catholic, they can be considered.
We brought up Guy Vogrin, one of the other. His name's Guy. It's so weird to say one of the other guys on podcast with. His name is Guy, but he's Catholic. He says he can get the call. And here's the problem: he's married, which would create like kind of an awkward nature,
A little bit. I don't know if the Vatican is set up for that.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be like, okay, divorce your wife,
move your whole family in. Yeah, that's not really a thing to do.
I told him, hey, some jobs, you've got the upper hand. Hey, if you want me, you need to do this. Maybe they could say, hey, if you want me, I need to have a wife. I need to have my family there. He could be the first married pope. How about that? Wouldn't that be great? A married pope.
Would it be? I don't know. I don't know if that's better.
Let's have a female pope. I'm down with that.
I bet you are. I think you should start your own religion. There you go. You just start your own religion and do what you want. Ask Henry VIII how that turned out.
Yes.
He just I'll just go start my own religion. Do what I want.
Need that male heir. Come on, male heirs. Oh, let's see. What else we got? Me, I love my McDonald's. You guys don't like McDonald's as much as I do, but will it change though? The new McCrispy chip strips, permanent chicken tenders, Paul. Enzo, sorry, I keep calling you Paul for some reason. May 5th, are you going to try the crispy chicken tenders?
I don't see it happening.
I thought this could be a way of reconnecting with McDonald's.
No, probably not for me. I don't think so.
Okay. It might be a little bit healthier for me. I need to help.
I mean, it's just no bread, but there's breading all over it. So I don't know if that's really.
Well, they kept talking about, are we going to bring back the they used to have like a chicken wrap that was a little bit more healthier. And I don't know, when COVID started, I think McDonald's is like, screw it. It's COVID. We're all going to die. Let's just.
Yeah. There are bigger problems in the world than whether or not the bun is an issue.
And it was like, some people were like, well, let's be safe during COVID. Let's mask up. Some people said we don't need masks. McDonald's like, well, let's just have really crappy food and maybe that'll help you die quicker. I don't know. They approach it from a different angle. So I don't know. I was talking, Subway has foot-long nachos, which is kind of strange. Subway's a little bit addicted to their foot-long sandwiches, which is kind of weird. So
that's just a packaging thing, though, right? I mean, they're not the nachos themselves are not a foot long.
No, in the packaging, it looks like a box. So you open.
So
they're
box. It's just a box that they use for the sandwiches, and
right.
they just put chips in it.
So a foot long,
sure,
string of nachos. So I don't know.
Oh boy,
So yeah, it's tough. Well, let's end on this one. Yeah, I'm hitting.
Hitting the wall. The wall's hitting me.
I feel like I'm starting pitcher that it's the sixth inning. I'm kind of going on gas right now. Let's end up with one thing. This is like our stairway to heaven, Joe. I mean, look, I know it's getting tough. I know the crowd's like, man, these old guys, they can't handle it anymore. But when Stairway to Heaven comes, we get that second win. So let's give this a try. Did you hear about the Southwest Airlines flight woman? She was flying at Chicago's Midway Airport, and she took her clothes off and defecated on a plane seat. How about that? That's a new one.
What? Why?
Okay, well, she was. Let's check this out. I gotta read the story. The headline appealed to me.
Yeah, I don't think it explains why. They don't say anything about why this happened. They're like, kind of feels like.
Well,
I don't know. It kind of feels like the nature of this thing is to blame Southwest. Like, oh my gosh, Southwest, we're so, we're so sorry for the delay and apologize for the situation. Like they're the ones that did it. That doesn't track with me. They're doing what they got to do. I know that. So they have a schedule of when planes are supposed to regularly come out of service and be repaired and cleaned and whatever else. And so when a situation happens where you have to juggle that schedule, it can be kind of a nightmare because not only are you just pulling a plane out, but now you have to put another plane in. Where'd that plane come from? Where is, like, do we reroute something from another place to this place so that we can take so it's a very complicated system. And when something happens out of the ordinary like this, it's not easy to just hop over. Oh, we'll just put them on another plane. Yes, but where did that plane come from, and who's going to fly on it, and all of these other situations, because the pilot and the crew's availability only lasts for a certain amount of time, so they can't be in midair when they have to go off the clock. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a very tricky thing, and there aren't planes just sitting there waiting in most airports. So yeah, it's complicated. And now there's going to have to be a deep clean on this whole plane just because somebody, it's just like this fully stripped naked, like, and we're not talking like a 5-year-old. This is like a grown human person.
I mean, we hear woman, so I'm assuming you're over 21. And see, the odd thing about it, we've talked about people who, you're on the middle of a flight, you gotta go. What if somebody else is in the toilet? So you don't know what else to do, and you might be frustrated or everything. This is while she was landing. You know what I mean? So it's not like, oh, there's a long line for the bathroom. I can't get back there. She's about ready to get off the plane. Isn't that strange?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could hear, somebody try to get up, and the crew people saying, "I'm sorry, you can't get up. You have to sit down. You have to keep your seatbelt on. We can't have you getting up and getting out of the plane while we're in the landing process." Like, there are safety issues and legalities, but the idea that the response thereof is to just drop trowel, and it says fully strip. So like this person fully disrobed.
If you
And
just had to go, and I
did
know,
this.
we don't like to admit that it's happened before. Why you take your clothes off?
I don't know.
Wouldn't at least having your clothes on hide some of the embarrassment of, oh man, I just crapped my pants.
Right?
Now you're just crapping. Like there's nothing clean.
You do what you got to do. Those little bags are there.
Or just put extra clothes on so no one sees you did your business in your pants. I mean, come on.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're, there you go. I mean, you probably have your suitcase on baggage. If I had to do that, I would get up, put like 100 pairs of pants on. Maybe that would hide some of the discomfort and the embarrassment of that. Don't take all your clothes off and do that. I mean, there's
now again, we need more information on this story. The fact that we're not getting is it something where there was an accident and so somebody has now soiled themselves and then they are removing those clothes, and if it is a fecal emergency situation, once you've removed clothing because you have already soiled it and there is more of the experience to be had.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do at that point?
And then it doesn't say was she arrested, was she,
Nope. It just happened. And then they're like, oh, Southwest Airlines needs to clean it. Yeah. But it that causes major disruptions down the line.
I would hope they would let the other passengers off the plane. Because again, you land.
Once you've landed, you can't do anything until you've actually landed.
But here's the worst part of it. Okay, so say that lady's in the 36th row of a 40-row plane. Okay?
Sure.
If you're in the first row, maybe you smell something. Maybe you hear some loud yelling in the back, like, "Oh my goodness, what are you doing?" You're in the first row, though. Okay, boom, run. You're off the plane, and maybe you read about it in the newspaper the next day or whatever. Here's the problem. 32nd or 33rd row. Okay, it's becoming a problem. You smell a little bit more. It's harder to get out. Here's the other thing. Doesn't say where the woman sat in the row.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of these rows have maybe, I've been on a lot of planes that have had like a row of 3 where they keep the middle seat open. You've got one on each side. Well, what if that lady sat at the end of the row and you're inside that lady? Not inside the lady, but you know what I mean? Say you have a window seat and the woman's sitting by the row and the woman takes
you have to go by it.
Yeah, you have to go by it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the awkward thing. Okay, we don't know, was she traveling alone? Was she traveling with a spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever? Okay,
children.
How bad would that be? Or kids. So, okay, yeah, horrifyingly embarrassed if you have to go by her. If, say you're, just some random person that doesn't know her. But could you imagine if it was like a spouse? What do you say? I would be like, I'm done. I'd be like, get me out of here. I don't know. Would that take marriage therapy? Like if, God forbid, your wife did that. How do you respond to that? You're like, I think we need to go see somebody. You know what I mean? I don't know. Very tough. So.
Yeah, we're not traveling together again.
Oh, yes.
I will meet you wherever we're going.
Yes, that would be very tough. So, I don't know. Well, man, that was her stairway to heaven. The crowd is cheering. We're like, good night, everybody. This is wonderful. So, Joe, anything you want to share, promote?
Nope.
Any screaming or any grand statements of disgust or whatever? No, I'm good. I would say support local journalism. We're journalism. Support this broadcast. Give us a big like, subscribe, call your friends. We're almost at 1,300 subscribers now, Joe. How about that?
What?
Yeah, on YouTube. So, yeah, fun stuff. Thank you for listening and sharing us. It's funny. What's really helped us out, YouTube is not a let's listen for 5 hours to one broadcast. Now, podcasting has got a lot popular where people do listen to longer podcasts on it, but the nature of video is just 1 or 2 minute clip. So we're finding that a lot of people are listening to our 2 minute clips. So we have a lot of shorts or reels on. Check us out. We have a lot of short clips on there. Like those too and share us with your friends. I went off, Joe, the other day about the great state of Florida. I said Florida is overrated. It sucks. Because Florida's nice. It's warm. It's sunny. There's beaches and everything else. But you run into all these animals. You have no idea who they are. You're afraid they're going to bite you and everything. And it's too hot down there. I went to a couple Devil Rays games. One time I was in Florida just because they have a dome stadium. I wanted to cool off.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with baseball. It's like it's too freaking hot out there.
Yeah.
At least in the baseball stadium, it's a nice 72, which isn't always the coolest. But in Florida, 72 is like a freezer, which is good because it's too freaking hot down there. So
yeah, the necessity of air conditioning is a major thing here.
Yep, definitely. All right. Well, Joe, you're getting tired. I'm getting tired. So for Joe, this is Chris. Have a great night, everybody.